everybody. Welcome to the Media and Democracy Project Information War Report for February 2025. There has been a lot that's happened since the last Information War Report. Very little of it good, but we will talk about some of the good today. Welcome again. I am Brian. This is one of my fellow Media and Democracy Project co-founders, Milo. Up on the screen, you see a little bit of what we do. We want people to get engaged civically in issues revolving around how they are informed, because it is how we are informed or not that has led us to this moment in America where we face a constitutional crisis. So we like to support journalism, we like to advance media literacy, and we work behind the scenes to achieve legislative and regulatory solutions. And we will see what that looks like in this new era. We were just briefly discussing our catchphrases. My catchphrase is, here's to healthier information. Milo's catchphrase is
something along the lines of, it's a good time to have your values meet and match your media diet.
Perfect. Meet and match, baby. All right, let's get right into it. So the Information War Report, all around us at all times, is being waged an information war, whether we know it or not. And we are actually the fodder of this information war. It is people who want to influence how we think and the decisions that we make at the ballot box that, bombard us with social media posts, memes, the pundits and media personalities who are paid, hello, Tim Pool, to influence our thought and to get us to act against our best interests as individuals and our best interests as an American society.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that is most pressing these days is the battle for language itself. The language people use to communicate what's happening is there's actually a battle over what those words mean. We'll talk about some of those words today. Constitutional crisis, coup, stretching legal boundaries and limits, euphemisms, stenography, and of course we'll talk later today about a euphemism/propaganda term, doji.
Yes, and the other part of this Information War Report is that we want to empower you with X-ray vision to see what's going on so that you can make healthier media choices and you can encourage everyone else to make healthier media choices. Literally, that is your tool belt. That is your armament in this information war, is communicating to everyone else that this is what's happening and that we need to fight by sharing healthy information. All right, let's just jump right into it. So this was a blog post that we did. You can go to mediaanddemocracyproject.org and click blog and find this. You can also use this hyperlinks, tiny.cc, Tubi Funds Fox. But so a lot of people were surprised that the act of watching Tubi actually funds Fox and Fox News and Rupert Murdoch's empire of hate, fascism, and bigotry.
So one of our members, Barbara, was really the heart and soul and put this together and really clarified that the future of the Murdoch media empire, one of the major pillars is the streaming platform Tubi. So if you haven't heard of it, do look it up, do read the blog post. This is a good example of matching your values with your media diet. There are plenty of other alternatives to watch because ultimately the Murdoch empire's future is driven over the road into people's homes using Tubi.
Okay, so this slide looks intense, but do not look away. You cannot look away. This is a brief overview of what we've been dealing with for the last month since the last Information War Report. Milo, why don't you take us through this a little bit?
Absolutely. So there is an onslaught of all senses, and it's helpful to just reflect back over the last month and just kind of take stock of some of the milestones. America was anticipating there would be some changes with the change in the administration, and it's been an onslaught. And so we're breaking it down into two different categories. We've seen that Donald Trump's been inaugurated. We've seen Elon Musk as a fully mobilized force from the executive branch and has embedded himself in our government. It's really been tough to even summarize. Assaults on public health, undermining NIH, funding grants, undermining military, diversity, all of that has all gone on in the last several weeks. But we see this through the lens of there's been an open assault on the First Amendment with weaponization of the FCC by the current Chairman Brendan Carr, coming for Disney ABC, Paramount CBS, NBC Uni, and it's very dangerous. And so we're going to do our best to summarize some of those events. And not only are there assaults using the weaponization of a federal agency on large media companies, but also it's getting very granular, where there are individual journalists who are being called out by Donald Trump and Elon Musk by name, which is extremely dangerous and is a threat to press freedom, which ultimately is a threat to American democracy and us all.
It's so bizarre to exist in a world where the First Amendment is being destroyed before our very eyes, with the President of the United States doing a full force attack to censor speech, to coerce speech by news organizations. One of our things that we really want to emphasize this month is don't be a Doge dope. Look, I like to be as open armed as possible in this messaging. We don't want to believe that you're a dope. We don't really want to call you a dope, and that's why so deeply we don't want you to be a Doge dope. And so let us help you, bring you along to understand what's really going on with Doge and how media and information is not necessarily representing that reality to us. So there's no Doge. Okay, Doge has not been established by Congress. It is not cool or awesome that they are looking past the Constitution to claim that Doge has the authority that it most definitely does not. Doge is a paramilitary squad of cyber thieves commanded by Elon Musk that is illegally stealing information and sabotaging our government against the interests of the American people. So what we recommend in this information war, which is also a war of language, because that is how we receive information. We receive it visually, we receive it with language. And sometimes we receive it with body language like Sieg Heiling. But so Musk's digital cyber thieves, that's a great way to reframe what's happening when people are talking about Doge. Our media likes to casually refer to it as though it is a real government entity that in some way has the authority to be doing what it is doing. They like to dryly refer to Elon Musk as attempting to make the government more efficient, even though I guarantee you that most of the journalists who are writing those pieces or working in those major legacy newsrooms know that that is not really what is happening. So we all want to be saying Musk's digital cyber thieves.
What makes it extra appalling and difficult to stomach is how journalists have absolutely swallowed and used stenography of this term. This term should never appear in a credible news organization. Doji is neither department, a government agency, or at all about efficiency. And I think it is one of the most appalling swallowing of propaganda that we've seen. We've seen over the last several years the weaponization of the term critical race theory by the right, and then corporate media swallows it and uses it. We've also seen corporate media use the term DEI in the last month or so, as opposed to explain that it's really an overt assault on an integrated, desegregated American society. And these acronyms that the press has just swallowed and used as that part of that information war without ever satisfactorily defining them and just propagating them and allowing them to set the frames of what's actually going on.
So don't be a Doge dope. We've got some commentary here. So Carl Bode says Doge is a fake government agency designed to provide flimsy, innovative efficiency cover to corrupt robber barons as they dismantle federal corporate oversight and sell the country for scrap off the back loading dock. Any politicians or journalists helping the performance should be laughed at. It's a take in direct opposition to all of the normalizing propaganda that we receive from our mainstream media and especially dominant right-wing media. And then over here on the right, we have Anil Dash. He says Doge is simply procurement capture by government vendors. The efficiency they seek is disadvantaging competitors to any of their businesses, like Rivian attempting to compete with Tesla. By throwing up regulatory obstacles and canceling government contracts, they're not being subtle. They are not being subtle. And unfortunately, who is being subtle are mainstream sources of information that should be doing a better job of contextualizing. So yeah, don't be a Doge dope. There is also an article that I put together, which is just to provide you with more context. We all need to understand what's really going on. Don't be a Doge dope. You can check out that article as well at publicenlightenment.com. Milo, do you have anything else to say about don't be a Doge dope?
I think just there's one other piece besides your really insightful piece that I think would be useful for folks to read. The next slide is by Rebecca Solnit, who's a brilliant writer, and she really specifically, as a writer, sees the power of language and framing. So just read this piece by Rebecca Solnit. To use their language is to endorse their lies.
So moving on to the assault on the First Amendment, Our FCC chair, Brendan Carr, is showing that he is very willing to reject all impartiality and behave on behalf of a president who wants to basically cancel the First Amendment in the sense that he is using the power of government to censor speech and coerce speech by our news organizations. And now it's happening directly at the White House, in the White House Correspondents' Room.
This is a surreal moment in American history and press freedom. Folks may have heard bits and pieces of this. Donald Trump made an executive order to rename Mount McKinley for Denali and rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. There are actually processes in international law on the naming of bodies of water and international waters, etc. So the Associated Press, they provide information for 1,300 American news outlets. So their style guide ends up having a massive impact on Americans and the world's understanding of what's going on. But the AP, following its protocols, declined to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico based on a presidential order, as there's international protocols. And so the AP explained why they cannot and will their standards not change the Gulf of Mexico's name. This triggered pushback and overt weaponization of the federal government, whereby the Trump administration banned the AP from several gaggles and access points to our government and the executive branch. And this continues to be of major concern, that a major news organization is in effect being banned from covering our American system of government based on presidential desires.
Yeah, and it's very Orwellian to then see the White House press secretary almost angrily stand at a podium and say that this is now official fact and frame this as we will not engage with news organizations that lie to America. That is how Caroline Leavitt has posed this from the podium of presidential power, saying that this news organization is not engaging in facts because the president decided to try to change an international body of water's name, and that's just not how it goes. Donald Trump and Caroline Leavitt are attacking speech, and they're attacking organizations that are standing up for speech.
As if that wasn't terrifying enough on its own right, Brian, that major news organizations have not made this a dominant story is both a self-inflicted wound and a fourth estate failure. That they have not amplified this and stood behind and rallied this attack is extra terrifying.
Let's move on to Mad Heroes and Zeros. Mad Heroes and Zeros is where we talk about who's been doing a great job uplifting democracy and shaping narratives that support free speech and democratic action and health in our society, and zeros do the exact opposite.
Yeah, there are heroes. Right now they're being drowned out by plenty of zeros, and once again our goal is to remind folks not to lose hope, not to lose faith, but to amplify, cling on to, hold them tight, the heroes, and elevate them and support them in every way we can.
So speaking of heroes, let's get right into it. It is the AP executive leadership team and the AP in general.
As we've seen major companies fold in obeisance to the authoritarian Trump administration, it is important to acknowledge, support, and praise those people who do stand up for American democracy. This is not a partisan issue. This is the fundamentals of how our system of government functions, and the Fourth Estate is central to that. February's Mad Heroes, there's several, but one of the big ones is the AP leadership team to stand up for truth, reality, and journalism itself in the face of increasing authoritarian threats. We've seen Google, which is not a news organization but has mammoth power, instantly change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. We've seen Apple do the same. These are giant, multi-billion-dollar companies. It's scary times, but to have a news organization be able to stand up, there are heroes for January for standing up in the face of all that, of those threats.
Now let's talk about the zeros. And its fellow, large news organizations that are doing a bad job.
Yeah, this is complicated. This might hurt some folks. I mean, we all grew up reading these different organizations and admiring their journalists. And it's not that these institutions do not produce some quality journalism, have many excellent journalists, but they are not meeting the moment. So if you were to kind of look at them holistically as an organization in the last month, have they adequately sounded the alarm of the assault on the U.S. Constitution, the illegality of DOJ, watching the National Institutes of Health get defunded, to watch safety officers who monitor our nuclear power plants get fired, and see literally hundreds of thousands of Americans being terminated, and no clear mechanism to stop these assaults, and to be covered as if it's just another development in the yin and yang of politics in America is terrifying. For that, the institutions that should be standing up and really sounding the alarm with A1 above the fold clarion call headlines of illegality, constitutional crisis, and threats to the future of all Americans, these organizations, the New York Times, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal in particular, it's about media ownership. It's media owners. These are giant institutions, but they're controlled by very affluent and very comfortable folks. So it's really Sulzberger's New York Times, Bezos's Washington Post, and Murdoch's Wall Street Journal. Those are their grades for the last month covering our constitutional crisis.
Yeah, we just had this absolutely corrupt act, this quid pro quo, where the president of the United States dropped charges that were brought by a grand jury of our American peers, fellow citizens, against the mayor of New York City. And you had federal prosecutors who were appointed by Donald Trump who quit. This was all reminiscent of something that happened with Nixon in the 70s called the Saturday Night Massacre. And if you go back and look at the headlines, the front page of the Washington Post, it makes very clear by taking up a lot of the space at the top of its front page that was a huge deal, giant font, multiple articles written about it. And then the Washington Post about what just happened with Donald Trump and Eric Adams was very muted. But these are the type of events that require and deserve a large breaking news banner. These are massive steps forward towards the undoing of American democracy. And for whatever reasons, whether it be ownership, whether it be profit seeking, these organizations are not doing the job of sounding the alarm. And so they have very bad grades. Can I ask you why the Wall Street Journal gets a B minus?
So the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal did call out Donald Trump's trade tariff as the stupidest trade war ever.
Yeah. Also, the Wall Street Journal recently spoke about the attacks on the free press by Brendan Carr. And so that's important to be communicating to the public as our freedoms of the press are under attack. Let's, Milo, transition to language of our times. One of the pieces of artillery in the information war is word choice, is framing, is narrative. It's important for us to think about media's word choices and if they are absolutely as accurate as they could be, because really every single little point of information that we all absorb collectively adds up to our beliefs about the world. So is it a riot or is it an insurrection? Is it an insurrection or is it a coup? And then who is exploiting that new language? So we like to catalog the language of our times every single time that we meet as Media and Democracy Project. You can see a few of the previous ones we had from 2024 there. And for February, we are focusing on the way that DOJ is being communicated. We are focusing on the way that it has already been normalized as something that it is not. It is not an official government agency, no matter that the president is claiming that it is. And it is not doing government efficiency work. There has been no evidence provided of fraudulent spending. We can all, as Americans, come together and have a debate about, what is wasteful spending or what is not. We can have an informed debate, hopefully, about what it means to use soft power via organizations like USAID. But what is happening with DOJ is nothing like that. It is, in fact, a anti-democratic, unconstitutional power play by two wealthy men who unfortunately sit at the head of power in our country and who are doing things that have nothing to do with government efficiency. And the media is saying that they are doing things in the name of government efficiency. And that is a violation of what it means to inform the public.
Agreed. This is a term that we're going to ask folks to get in the trenches and ferret out and combat it. It's already made it into the lexicon at the front page of major news organizations, but reject it in your own use.
Reject it. Call Doge a paramilitary group of cyber thieves. Okay, this is the highlight. This is the dessert. This is what everybody comes for. Should be front page, but isn't. February 2025 edition. Let's get into it. These are 6 headlines that represent stories and narratives that are not appearing in our news and information sources with the frequency that is required for us to understand these very important things that are happening to us as a society. So over here, A, we have White House says it has the right to punish AP reporters over Gulf naming dispute. Maybe it's being written about once in the news organization that you get your news from, but it's really something that requires a lot of attention because it gets to a fundamental core of America.
This is an overt unconstitutional assault on press freedoms from the executive branch and should be an affront to every journalist, every news organization, and every patriotic American.
Yeah, heck yeah. B, establishment of the White House Faith Office. There have been major incursions against the separation of church and state for years, but this is pretty glaring. The White House has issued an executive order, the establishment of the White House Faith Office. Of course, if this means that they are establishing a faith office that encompasses paganism and, Episcopalianism, Pastafarianism, right? If we are living in the America that we know that accords with the Constitution, this faith office represents all faiths, but it is unlikely that that will be the case. And our sources of information making us aware of this threat to religious freedom that we all enjoy, the freedom to practice any religion or the freedom to not practice any religion. Number C,
love it.
Number C, a Russian strike drone with a high explosive warhead hit the shelter that protects the world from radiation from the destroyed 4th power unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant at night, said Volodymyr Zelensky. Is that being covered? And also, just side note, I know it's not in this list, but also the people who manage our nuclear arsenal, many of them were fired this week and then unfired this week. Are any of these nuclear stories being covered in a way that accords with the reality that nuclear disaster will kill millions of people?
Number D, a small independent outlet is Talking Points Memo. This is an outlet that has broke a story here that's really important. This is something that should terrify, if you weren't already concerned about Doge accessing all sorts of government data and getting confidential information pretty much on all Americans and government employees. Elon Musk and his cabal of cyber thieves have access to the IRS and everyone's tax returns and private information. So this should be a bigger story. Number E, the FCC. Not enough Americans understand the full power of an FCC gone rogue and weaponized, and that's beginning to happen. It's impacting powerful media companies, Paramount, NBC Uni, Disney, but it oversees America's airwaves, satellites. And in case you didn't know, bonus content, Elon Musk has a satellite company called Starlink, which is regulated by the FCC. So we're going to see more about this FCC, and we think the FCC should be a much bigger story. And then lastly, in terms of a granular assault on a free press, both Elon Musk and Donald Trump have started to attack individual journalists by name publicly to their millions of followers. We are all familiar, unfortunately, and increasingly so, the concept of stochastic terrorism. This is unacceptable. This is a threat to all Americans. And all news organizations, and so we think that this is important to highlight, and these should be much bigger stories to act as a deterrent. And so those are the D, E, and F.
It is unreal to see the President of the United States here taking to his social media and calling a journalist incompetent, attacking a member of the press. And just so you know, if you come to our monthly meetings, which you can find by going to mediaanddemocracyproject.org and signing up to attend, we talk about these, we vote on them each time, and then we publish the results of that vote. And it's a fun game that we play because guess what? We're making media and democracy fun.
Again.
Oh, no, you didn't. Oh, it's gross. Okay, here we go. Mad actions for February. That's right. We like this little quote here. Freedom of the press is not just important to democracy, it is democracy. In our meeting this month, we are sending a thank you letter of support from the MAD community to the AP's Daisy Veerasingham. So we have to stand up for every positive action that anyone in the press and journalism is taking to defend themselves and to defend our right to get information freely in this country. The real people who are standing up for free speech are the ones who are being attacked by the government in this time. Be an engaged news consumer in 2025. Our hashtag for the year is press freedom. If you come to our meetings, we are sending that letter to the AP to thank them, and you can sign on to a letter like that. What our action will be in March might be something similar, and so you can add your voice. Number one, reject the use of Doge by journalists and in your speech. Be someone in your community who stands up and virally spreads the idea that Doge is nothing more than a scam. Use the language that we referenced earlier. It's Elon Musk's paramilitary squad of cyber thieves. Number two, match your media diet to your values. Milo's amazing catchphrase. So read and share our piece on Tubi funding Fox. There's a link right there. You can also go to mediaanddemocracyproject.org and click on blog at the top, where you can also find a bunch of other great articles uplifting media and democracy. Number three, you can thank a journalist, right? Journalists are under attack. The president is calling them the enemy of the people. That is motivating people to send them hate mail and do all sorts of things that depress their energy to stay in the profession and continue to report in the public interest. So you can be on the front lines of the information war and you can support those journalists. You can also use your money. You can use your clicky finger and subscribe to independent newsletters or nonprofit journalism that's reporting in the public interest. And you can also donate to our effort to hold Fox and the Murdochs accountable. We have a petition before the FCC to remove a broadcast license from Fox that was rejected by the previous FCC chair. We are now appealing that rejection. It is one way that if you've ever said to yourself, I really want to do something about Fox, the way that they lied to America, the way that they fomented an insurrection, the way that they have warped the mind of my relatives so that they no longer consult with facts and only get their view of the world from a place that is designed to disinform them. You can fight back by helping to fund our effort to appeal the FCC's decision on our petition. You can find everything you need to know about that at that website right there. You can also go to foxpetition.com. And you can attend our screening of Stripped for Parts, American Journalism on the Brink. We will have director of that movie, Rick Goldsmith, with us. That screening and Q&A will happen on Saturday, March 29th. There's a tiny CC here. You can also go to our website and register as well. That'll be happening at 8 p.m. on March 29th. It'll be a good time. And of course, you can always go to the Media and Democracy Project's local journalism directory, where we have a 50 state plus U.S. territories searchable index of all sorts of nonprofit and independent journalism outlets that are reporting in the public interest. And so if you want to be a warrior on the front lines of this information war and push back against the disinformation and propaganda that is being forced down our throats by billionaires, you can go there and find organizations reporting in the public interest in your local community or in your state. And so far, as always, on this program, we end with this postage stamp from 1947. Our republic and its press will rise or fall together. That is the phrase you must keep in your back pocket at all times. Journalism, the free press, is democracy. It is our First Amendment. and it matters more than ever.
Agreed. Our republic and its press will rise or fall together. Remember to match your media diets with your values, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Brian, take us out.
Here's to healthier information.